6th, 2021. And we're harvesting corn before anybody in the area this year. Right, that's how we'll look at it. This is 2020's corn. So you saw me harvest some, a few weeks ago before a bunch of snow. That's probably actually really a month ago now. And the ground didn't freeze, but that corn is at home. I'm actually at one of my rental fields. And this corn in places is standing really well. And then there's a couple places where I'm, definitely getting the most out of having the tips on the ground. But we're peeling it up okay, and it's sucking it in, getting all that corn. Don't have to worry about getting too cold today. It's kind of warm, and I don't know if you can see the wind blowing. I mean, I can. It may be hard to pick up on camera, and I can't focus away from center here for too long. But in this direction, we have a good tailwind. I changed direction of rows in this field. I usually would plan it what ended up being north-south, just because I enter the field from that end. So it made sense to run them north-south, 90 degrees to what we're doing now. So that way I wouldn't have to drive, a long time to go across the rows. Like when I came to that end at the headland, and say the combine was full or I need to refill, I was close to the entrance, close to where all the stuff would be. Well, this year, I decided to change the direction and run them east-west, because I figured a predominant wind would come out of the west. All the bad weather, well, it does, except for in the winter, when, everything comes out of Canada and we have winds out of the north. And I guess it helped planning them east-west instead of north-south a little bit. But still, I guess the wind can still change directions just enough to try to be a nuisance any way you put it. A lot of the less than upright corn, I wish we could go back and give the corn Viagra, wouldn't that be great? Yeah, it's mostly a root problem. And why is it a root problem? Because there was lots of water. Welcome to Ohio. No sunny day goes unpunished. We haven't had rain for almost a week now, or over a week actually, but the last time we had moisture, we were melting off 2 weeks worth of snow, at least. Plus probably an inch of rain. Did put the rain gauge back out because, well, it's still technically winter, so there could be freezing temps, so we don't want to bust the rain gauge. And really right now, the amount of rain we get doesn't matter, because it doesn't dry out too super quickly. We don't have the length of day or the direct radiation to get the water to evaporate off. So yeah, we've gone a week plus, maybe almost 10 days without rain, lots of sunshine. And then I'm looking at the Weather Channel. Oh, yep, had that happen once or twice. We'll shut it off. You can kind of hear the ratchet knuckles clicking. And usually by the time I shut it off, it will have stopped. We may have to go out, take the cover off the bottom of the return elevator. Let's try it real quick. Come on. Nope. Okay, we gotta do this the fun way. Had this happen once before today. And we are loaded with tools, got the impact, some sockets. And I'm not quite sure, it's probably a cob that's wedged somewhere. But what I've been able to do is we come out here, open up the bottom of the return, play around, blah, blah, blah. Hey, we're already set. This has been done before, obviously. There's more teeth marks there than what I've made. And when it clicks, we're turning, the ratchet knuckles backwards. Oh, let's look in here. What do we find? Where's that cob placed? And it's not a small piece of cob. It's a cob with no kernels, wedged underneath the chain. And I'm just turning it backwards all all the way backwards. Because I can. I'm hoping that I see a piece of cob wedged in one of these. Because I kept getting to the same spot. Whatever it was wasn't coming out. I remember seeing that. The connection point. So maybe I've turned it over enough that we can go up in the cab and turn this over. Usually all I had to do, was shut it off, turn it back on, and it would be happy with itself and go back to a nice functional life. Okay, let's listen. Starting to turn. Okay. Don't hear any clickety-clicky clack. So we should be, we'll shut that off so I don't lose a finger. We'll put the covers back on. That's been the biggest nuisance of the day, was this right here. And it's cob. I figured a tight chain would have been good for life. Guess no tight chains. Even had it opened up here to see what was going on. Sometimes I can see something. I could kind of feel there was a piece of cob, but the way it was positioned was right underneath a paddle, so I really couldn't reach in very well once I reversed the chain some to get it out. Hey, no parts fixes are good, but I can't figure out why I keep getting a cob caught. Never had this issue on the 70, and I had it happen once with the chain loose, so I figured having the chain well tight would be the remedy. Maybe there's some happy medium I don't know about where the chain is not too loose and not too tight, where it's just right for Goldilocks. Guess that would work on the combine Goldilocks, because it is yellow. I've been with the ladder down. I'll leave it down. I don't feel like pulling it up. We're doing okay here. Not taking out the next row. Give me that steering wheel. Pull the lever, Kronk. Okay. That is so annoying. And then here comes Nick finally, once the problem is solved. Figured the problem would have started when he was back here. But at least he's in that cab and not this cab, so we have a few moments of peace and harvesting to ourselves. Now Nick's been running wagons for me, taking them home. Bring the throttle up nice and slow. 820 is plenty fast for corn. Of course, sometimes we're running some more down stuff through. We're taking a lot more of the whole plant, and it helps just to have the speed to run it through fast enough, because we're taking so much volume. Whew. Back to progress. Well, I made a pass or two back here. When we get to the end, we'll take a look at the yield monitor as we spin this monster around. Of course, Nick came all the way back here with the tractor. We have the wagons way up yonder. I guess I should have told him to bring a wagon back. Save me from driving up there to unload. And I'm sure someone will chime in once you get a grain cart. Usually the fields are not big enough. This is the, other than the back field at home, this is the single largest field that I farm. This is 25 acres. I guess it'll be nice to not drive on the neighbor's field, even though I want to. Looks like they had the land leveler out there this fall. Parts of this field I really want to get a land leveler in here on. But the problem is getting back here. This is the field with the creek crossing where I dumped a wagon load of corn that one year. And, well, I don't know how to get something that long across the creek. So I'd have to see if the neighbors would be nice enough to let me cross the field to get back here to use a land leveler and try to work on that big center section of the field. It's almost like basin shaped. It doesn't drain very well, and you have to get the ditches so deep to go against the grade of the field. Like, there is places where it slopes up front to get the water away. For some reason that middle section is, it's wet when it's wet. I think these 2 rows we're following were maybe where I sprayed. Some of those sprayer passes the corn was not happy about where I drove. Depends on how wilty it was. You know, I sprayed corn, well, I sprayed the corn a little tall this year instead of spraying it shorter. And that's a product of hay, because I got to take advantage of every 3 dry days, and of course, those don't come often enough, and we can't get more than 3 dry days, so I got to focus on the hay when I can. And then hopefully it's not too muddy when I spray. Then it got so tall I had to use dry days where the corn was wilty to spray it. So I could get over top of it. It's one thing I don't like making. I'm not a big fan of spraying videos, like making them, because there's a lot to focus on, and I definitely don't want to mess up while doing that. You know, don't want to, I don't know, have drift on the neighbor's crops. Definitely don't want to overlap, because some of the chemicals, the rate is very specific. Like, you do not go over the rate. But that's part of the resistance problem, though, is trying to skimp on the rate. That's one thing I learned from a weed science class. Don't cut yourself short. Don't try to save that penny. Kill the weed. You know, put the highest recommended rate on so you kill it instead of just, you know, maybe punch it in the stomach. Stupid branch. This field's almost big enough I could be okay planting myself a 4th headland pass, but I usually just do 3 because 3 matches nicely with, you know, how we spray. So I usually only do 12 headland rows instead of 16. Let's climb out of this little hole, this corner of the field. It all slopes together so the water will collect right where we are. Too much slope. Sometimes the coolant will flash at me. I know it's full because I checked it before we started, but the sensor is at the very top of the radiator. Same thing with the air filter. I cleaned it out before we came over here. Oh, the joys of electronics. Of note, I did take the ear diverters off the head just to make sure any of these stocks that weren't standing super well have a good chance of being sucked in nicely. Usually if I can run the tips right on the ground, we'll get underneath. And the stocks are stiff. The stocks are very stiff. It'll just pull it right in. Now back here, I'd say it was drier because more of these stalks are, I guess we'll say, broken off versus turning in the mud. Which I'd almost prefer them to be breaking off, because then it forms a triangle, like with the stalk that's in the ground and the piece that bent over, and I can sneak the snout in, you know, just underneath that, and that works great. It's when it was just straight up mud, because it rained. That's more of a challenge, because usually then the roots are not anchored well and you can just pick everything up, stock, mud and all, off the ground, because, I don't know if that's because the roots run it off, or the plant never had to put down roots because the water was always right there. Now this back section probably would have been a lot worse if I had it planted the original way of north-south, which was 90 degrees, to how we are now. I mean, this stuff kind of went down a little bit with the rows, but usually if I go slow enough, the gathering chains will pull it up, or I get the tips underneath. Well, this is not the most fun exercise in corn harvest, but it beats sitting in an office pushing paperwork or something. Well, we're going to keep going here. There's only so much I can think to talk about while going up and down the rows. I doubt I'll be able to get Dad to drive. And who knows what sort of interesting commentary we get if I have Nick film this from outside. Sure not going to let him drive the combine. Last time I let him do that, he bent the divider on the grain table. Oh yeah, hopefully you guys are still listening to the commentary this long. Nick bought the 1466. Why did Nick buy the 1466? Well, he's been bugging me about buying it, since last fall, and I kind of thought, once I got the 2+2 together, which that'll go much better once I get corn harvest done, or if it just rains every day, I'll have nothing better to try to do outside, so I'll be forced to spend time in the garage there fixing it. When I got it together, I was gonna, kind of loosely look at selling the 14, and then Nick just bugged me. So he ended up buying it, but also his family had a barn burn down and burnt all his tractors and the TR70. So that's sad. I sold Nick the 70 just so it would stay close, so I could reminisce and maybe watch it at some point in the fall. No, what does he need? Come on, you gotta be able to solve problems without me. I can't, put out every fire. Or he could get out of the tractor and come over here. I don't know what could be going terribly wrong for him that he would need me. Whoa, would you look at that yield monitor? It's full back there. Auger's out. It's got to watch where we're going. So we pull up to the wagons and dump. Hopefully Nick's somewhere to get that little pile of corn. We don't want to purposely leave too many deer snacks. Yeah, the one wagon must have had the door not shut very well. So got that little pile. And with the timing, everything's dry, the stock is supremely dry. We can kind of look through the window a little bit. See the corn, not very well. I guess we can, I'll pop this open and take a look outside. You don't see too many cob pieces. There's a couple little bits like this, but as you saw while I was working with the elevator, the return elevator, that the cobs are coming out of the rotors fairly whole, so we don't have to worry about the cob pieces too much in the corn. Okay, we're closing the door. Hopefully we can see, but I don't feel like having a cab full of bees wings. As you can see the dust blowing, that's usually the typical wind direction. But, I guess in winter things go crazy. Cold air comes out of Canada, comes rushing down. It's like the big bad wolf. I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your corn down. Maybe. It's doing pretty good where we're working. I already had some corn in this wagon. Way over yonder towards the trees is where that treacherous creek crossing is. So usually I don't go too crazy on the wagon fill. Moisture, it's dry. I haven't got the moisture tester out. I'd hazard a guess to say it's real comfortably 13, maybe 14%. It's nowhere near 20 like it was way back yonder when we started this. That's probably a good enough pile, because as we go down the hill and stuff, it'll settle out. Probably adds weight, right? See, this next wagon is one of Bandit's wagons. So do I fill it or do I fill that other wagon? And the problem with Bandit's wagon is that he has them set up to unload on the other side, so it is a bit annoying to pull them up to unload at home. So we'll reload this other wagon instead. That way it's easier to, I don't know, it's nicer to unload off the left. That's just kind of how our barnyard is set up. You can do it from the right, but you got to turn the wagon around first and come back instead of pull straight down the drive, which, you know, I guess if Nick doesn't get these wagons taken care of fast enough, maybe I'll get a video of that. Okay, we're gonna do a little bit. Okay, somebody closed the door. I don't see a pile of grain starting on the ground. As we look underneath, nope, just a handy dandy pile of bird poop. Lovely birds, lovely. It must have been flying just right. Actually, I think I'd have left the door open last night and they perched up there. Stupid birds. Yeah, it's almost a grain tank. Of course, you can't see so much glare. Need to get one of them newer fancy combines where they've got the shades that pull down. Yeah, just to block the sunlight or to block you from viewing the grain coming in the tank because the prices are so bad, which isn't the case right now. But that was a couple years ago when I went to the farm show. I had fun with that. Playing with the blinds. Corn was only like maybe $3 then. Or we're up over $5 even at the local elevator. I shouldn't have to move this one around. Now when I empty the next load in here, I'll have to sit there and play and try to get it nice and even on top. Oh man, it just takes forever to unload. I have the gates in the center set really low so we don't unload too fast. I don't know why I set it so slow. Guess I didn't want to overload things and just we could spend more time enjoying watching the corn flow out and the dust blow away. Well, we're gonna call that close enough to being unloaded, and we'll catch you guys with whatever action smacks us in the face next.